Have y'all started the meeting?
Keep me.
Sorry, that traffic.
Thank you, Mike. You go.
My wife is.
Good morning, everyone. I'll call the May 19th, 2023 meeting of the VRE Operations Board to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alcorn? Ms. Crystal? Here. Ms. Franklin? Here. Ms. Berry? Here. Ms. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Kelly? Ms. Lawson? Here. Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. Mensing? Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Stork? Mr. Walkinshaw?
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Okay, and Ms. Bagley and Ms. Hayes have requested to participate in the meeting remotely. Ms. Bagley's out of town and Ms. Hayes has another meeting she has to attend at 11 o'clock. They're being informed physically present. Do I have a motion and a second to allow Ms. Bagley and Ms. Hayes to participate electronically?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Rich, will you give us a safety briefing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, we have made assignments. Chris Henry in the back will be our primary 911. And Robert Helson up there next to him will, primary responsibility will be to gather the AED, CPR, first aid kits and that type of stuff. And just as a reminder, if you need some help, there is a AED with oxygen hanging on the wall next to the elevator. And then just quickly, you're all familiar with the evacuation routes. We always like to use the primary evacuation routes through the double wooden doors down the stairwell. We won't take the elevator. And then just finally, you notice that we have the what I refer to as the skinny long configuration here. Does provide a little bit more room on the outside instead of being squished up against the walls. Just trying a couple of different things, and primarily just so in the event that if we do need to evacuate, that we've got room to do that. I don't see any real tripping hazards, but if there are any that are generated as we're in this room, we'll try to maintain those as well. So that's my safety briefing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next item is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. One abstention. Okay.
You're
Scared.
abstaining from
Uh,
the.
This is on the agenda. Yep.
And,
I'm gonna drink more coffee.
Mr. Chair, we can't pass the approval of the minutes with an abstention either, so there wouldn't be enough.
Okay.
Well, typically it's
Just
just
say-
a formality and I can still vote to approve it. So
Yeah, you can vote. I mean, if you read it and you're comfortable with it.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. So the agenda is approved. And moving on to the minutes of the April 21st, 2023 meeting. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I move to approve of the minutes. Okay, then moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, welcome everyone to our May board meeting. Just as a heads up, we will have a closed session today after the two information items that are on our agenda. And we'll also have a CEO and CLO evaluation committee meeting in this room after we've adjourned. Everyone's welcome to join us for that meeting. And maybe the most important thing we'll do today is recognize former operations board chair and current board member Katie Crystal for her many contributions to VRE as she prepares to leave elected office. I won't say for greener pastures, but for a green pasture in July. And just a few highlights of Katie's service. She joined the operations board in 2016 and joined the executive committee. She served as secretary, vice chair, and chair in 2019. Her leadership, among other things, allowed us to address big issues like the implementation of positive train control. Maybe wishes she hadn't addressed that, but she did. And our search for a new CEO. And I'll just say, as a new board member at the time when we were going through that process, Katie's contributions and institutional knowledge and judgment were key, and I think a successful process in identifying a new CEO. She's championed capital projects like the construction of the life cycle overhaul and maintenance facility, and I hope you'll still join us for the opening. Improvements to stations, including Quantico, the procurement of 21 new rail cars, the advancement of I know something that's important to her, the intermodal connector between the new Crystal City station and National Airport. And she's been a leader beyond VRE and championing the $4 billion Transforming Rail in Virginia, serving on the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission and the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, advocating for investments to get people out of their cars and onto transit. And Katie, on behalf of VRE and the operations board, thank you for your incredible service. We're gonna miss you. I won't miss you because I think I'll still get to see you, but we're gonna miss you very much at VRE. And I'm happy to give you the floor to share your parting words with us, and then we have a little presentation for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that really those kind remarks. Thank you, everyone. If you'll indulge me, I'll be that like grizzled old guy at the bar talking about the glory days. I have just.
That's why we have Steve. All right.
Yeah, I noticed among my achievements, you didn't mention my involvement in bringing over a new.
That's true. Yeah.
This has just been such a meaningful part of my service, being part of this group of people. I really, not to sound too grandiose about it, but I think the VRE Operations Board might be the last truly bipartisan institution in America. I mean, this is really a place where people just check everything at the door and are so collaborative about the singularity of the mission. And it's been so meaningful to be part of that. And I'll just say, I think kind of reflecting on some of the things that Chair Walkinshaw shared, some of the achievements I've been fortunate to sort of be around for, witness, certainly the Transforming Rail in Virginia, the establishment of the CROC to put our capital future on secure grounds, being part of this board as we took risks like bonding for the first time and deciding to contribute to the Long Bridge project. All of those, I think, have really come back to vision, which this board has always been willing to tap towards. And I came on, I think the System 2040 plan was somewhat fresh, right? I think it was like 2014. And so it seems really fitting, that as I pass the torch to another Arlingtonian, this board will be visioning a future beyond that. But I think it's always been about the capacity to understand how this system can make an impact on people's lives and how it can grow and change. And keeping towards that vision as the North Star has made such a difference. And as has having spectacular state partners, I was really fortunate to serve and lead on VRE during the tenure of a couple of governors and particularly Secretary Valentine and DRFT Director Jennifer Mitchell, who so championed rail, who so visioned that what all the Long Bridge could do for the entirety of the Commonwealth and certainly for us in Northern Virginia. And I think about one of the best legacies of that is the creation of the VPRA, and Mike, who's been so instrumental in that work. I think what's so helpful for us now, not that we'll always agree with the VPRA, but we have the stability of an institution. We're not as dependent on the political vagaries of which governor cares about rail transportation or not. We have a real partner to work with in an ongoing way as VRE. So I think everyone is so set up for more success, although there'll be challenges ahead. The last piece of advice I'll share, I think the most important thing that the operations board does is choose an executive. That is not only because we are so reliant on him or her for good advice in the system's future, but because that chief executive is the one who is going to set the culture and tone for the incredible staff of the Virginia Railway Express, who are the ones actually following through on everything that we hope to achieve. And one of the things I admire about our current CEO is I know he wakes up every day rededicating himself to that form of leadership. And I think as the board, it behooves us to rededicate ourselves to making sure that is a leader who is connected to the staff, as Rich has been, for our future, because this is an amazing team. I felt really grateful to be able to watch some of your work over the years and to be part of this operations board. So thanks for indulging me. I'm really grateful.
Thank you, Katie.
Presents and pictures.
All right. Got it, okay, all right. This is for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And you have a toddler at home.
I do.
I think they're gonna enjoy this.
Should I open another? Oh my God. Okay, this is going to be.
Last for about 30 minutes. Smashed, but.
This is incredibly cool. Just as we can see it in model car. Thank you so much.
Are you finished in your term?
So I'm actually resigning my hair early in July of this year, 6 months before the year.
Okay, I kind of thought I caught
They
something like that.
get Fairfax has lured me over, so it's working in face and stuff.
Wow.
Very fortunate, very fortunate. Okay, Rich, CEO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of things, on the safety side, just, be as brief as I can, but we can talk about this continuously, but I'll share with you, our staff meets with our partners at Keolis once a month. And Keolis provides an update on a lot of different things that they're doing. And obviously we track safety, we track performance, we track a lot of different things. So I just wanted to give you just a snapshot. Here's one thing that we track or they track, report to us: FRA violations, controllable derailments, and FRA controllable accidents. And this is an example. I've come in here before and we talked, I've presented, Keolis's successful milestones with no lost time injuries, et cetera, but it goes beyond that. And if you're going to set a goal of 0 and you track it on a trailing 12-month standpoint and there's 0 incidents or whatever, I think that deserves a moment or two. And I just, always commend John Cairns, who's sitting back there, who's probably, just trying to be a little incognito, but he's got a great team. We've got a great collaborative partnership and stuff like that. But when we sat in our meeting last Friday, once John got to this slide, I don't recall anything he said afterwards, honestly, because this was very impactful. I mean, when you have a team and you establish a goal of 0, and these are under very, very critical elements of what contributes to the successful, safe operations of VRE. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think it's a real good accomplishment. It wasn't that they had just hit 0 because of the trailing 12 months. It's been going on for a while. So just want to bring that up. On-time performance, fortunately, we're ticking back up. We're still not up to our target of 90%. But as I've mentioned at commission meetings, and I think at the previous operations board meeting, we did have the Fredericksburg line had their on-time performance had suffered a little bit, but primarily because of a lot of maintenance away work out there. We're still looking at, I'll just skip to the next one. We still, obviously, our largest contributor to delayed trains is congestion, but as you could see, particularly in the month of March, in that middle column, had a lot of maintenance away activities started to trail off in the month of April. And of course, we did have some accompanying speed restrictions. And we had some heat orders. We actually, I think, had an heat order day in February. So, yeah, exactly. But nonetheless, it's trending back up, and we look forward to getting back to what our target is. Monthly ridership, as you can see for the month of April, we normalized that between April and March, just about on par for March. That is depicted more clearly in average daily ridership. Of course, in the previous slide, were 20 operating days in the month of April compared to 23 in the month of March. One thing I did want to point out, and I've been asked this question a little bit, just to give some relevance to, the first 4 complete service months of calendar year 2023 compared to 2022. And as you can see, 2023 is markedly above the same period in 2022, about 80% or so. And so I wanted to highlight that here because I have been asked this question in other formats. Last Wednesday, we conducted our customer survey on board all of our trains. So all of our staff and again, partners at Keolis, we were out there conducting the survey. Very good response. I don't have any specific data for you yet, but good response. And of course, this is also an opportunity, not just collect information, input from our riders, but again, literally all of our staff is out there, and it gives us an opportunity to engage directly with our customers. And I think you have to admit that that picture on the right about Chris is pretty good. Also want to report today's Bike to Work day, and several places within our different jurisdictions. Want to point out Manassas Park, of course, was sponsored by Alana Mensing, who's not here today. Woodbridge was sponsored by Supervisor Franklin, who was here, and now she just. Anyway, we have staff out at all those locations, and really trying to. Obviously, we're promoting the bike to work piece, but if you need another mode tucked in between biking and walking, go ahead and put your bike on VRE. I'll take this moment to say we are still tracking in that about 1,500 bikes a month since the ops board changed the policy about a year ago now. So lots of accommodations, if you will, for people riding their bike. Want to also let you know our Meet the Management season is starting. I did believe at the NVTC meeting, I did indicate a date in the month of March. We've re-racked this a little bit just because of some scheduling and logistics concerns. So our first Meet the Management event will be June 7th at the LaFont station. As you can see, about a week apart, skipping here and there, concluding at Union Station on July 19th. We'll also do some pop-up events yet to be determined, likely later on in the summer. But again, this is a good event for our staff to get directly with our customers. Also want to promote the Manassas Rail Festival that we partnered with the city of Manassas, and more specifically the Historical Manassas folks. June 3rd, Saturday, always a great event. And we'll be running some excursion trains out there starting at 10 to 1. So be a good time. I know whoever they have typically in charge of weather out there is spot on. They do a job on that. So I'm looking.
I do it this way.
Also want to point out that this was the second year that we had participated in the Great Train Race in the city of Fredericksburg. And it's a great event. Just I think it's going in its about third decade. And it's on a Sunday morning, and about 1,400 kids in a bunch of different age groups come in and compete in a race. I will say that Supervisor Gary's daughter, Evelyn, won it's the 12 to 13 age group, but that just coincidentally happened to be the the race that VRE sponsored. So I say coincidentally. And then Rochelle finished second in her age group at that race, but I hear that she went on to Redeemer.
Yes.
Actually,
She broke the
Redeemers.
record this last week.
Wow.
Wow.
And beat the girl that she lost to in the train race.
But the one,
Unfortunately, but we're happy for her too.
the one she placed second in, we did not sponsor, so maybe that's a sign as well, right?
That's what it is.
Anyway, great event, great. We have staff there, lots of folks interested in having discussions about VRE, frankly. So that's something we continue to support. Wanted to also let you know we'll be implementing our seasonal schedule again this year, starting our first service day after Memorial Day. Up to it's actually the first day in September. As some of you know, that's intended to help mitigate the effects of heat orders, particularly on our Fredericksburg line trains during the time frame that heat orders are activated. And then Kara wanted to introduce a new staff member, Brandon Stein. He's in the back, has come on board VRE as a facility maintenance assistant. Brandon graduated from Virginia Tech, and it's okay. Okay, right? Okay. And so he's come on board to work with Eric back there, who's our facility maintenance manager, and Mike on all things facilities. And again, that's, you know, we talk a lot about trains, but, you know, we really focus on, you know, the customer experience for us is when they pull in that parking lot. And of course, when they exit that parking lot at the end of the day. So Eric and his team, and now with Brandon on board and stuff, it's parking lots, it's station structures, it's facilities, in addition to that. So he came on board to help us out in a very, very important element of what we do. So welcome, Brandon. And then just finally, I just wanted to reemphasize, I know I put this in my weekly report last week, but just pleased to participate in a groundbreaking event that took place. Supervisor Franklin, Supervisor Bailey was there, and it was groundbreaking for the Potomac Shores parking garage. So just to let you know that, you know, yes, after a couple of decades, that project continues to move on. So very excited about that. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Questions for Rich? Dawson?
Thank you. Rich, I don't know if this is common knowledge. I know that you're aware of it, but I just learned last week about the emergency exercise, the regional exercise at Quantico. And I specifically asked if VRE was participating. Do you want to touch on that? Or I don't think I'm sharing anything that's confidential.
No, I don't think it's confidential. I think that put some press releases and stuff.
Okay.
So let me just say, we're not participating in that.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
We were involved initially, as was CSX, in some of the initial planning, but they moved to more of it is like a simulated train incident or whatever. And I'll just say they're doing it, you know, different, not wrong or anything like that, but they're just doing this a little different than versus having the railroads directly involved, and primarily because.
They might be confused what we're talking about.
What's that?
Does everybody know what we're talking about? Yeah.
I'll explain. May I? Since it's in my district, because I want to help you with, yeah.
I didn't know you were sitting there.
I'm here. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and please accept my apologies for being tardy. I won't get my cookie for today. But let me explain. Thank you, Rich, you are not involved in that. And it is a simulated exercise in Quantico. It will involve Quantico town. They have been involved, they've been informed of what's going on, but it's only for public safety and protection if something really does happen. And so it's been a very long time that this has come about in the district. And all of a sudden now it's come about, it's time for it to do it. I've met with the county chief, fire chief, and he's a part of the exercise. And I've also met with the base, and I've also met with the mayor of Quantico. So everybody is in the loop, and they're putting protections in place to kind of make sure that everybody knows and protect the citizens. That's the most important thing. But it's nothing to be alarmed about, but it's a proactive move to make sure that in case something happens, everybody will know what to do. Now, the miscommunication that came about in the midst of this is because it hasn't been done in a long time. And so somebody woke up one morning and said, hey, we need to do this. And so the communication of that was not as succinct as it should have been. But I think we've put it back on the rails, so to speak. And you like that? Okay. And the exercise shouldn't take a long time. And when the colonel came to to the county board for his visit last week, he invited us to, that was before you got there, Janine. He invited us to come and participate.
No, I was there.
Were you there? Okay, good. And to participate, but I don't think a lot of us are going to.
Yeah, I think we'll be in the way.
I think so too. I think so too. So it's nothing to be alarmed about. It's a proactive move.
I'm sorry, I brought it up because I misunderstood the colonel and thought VRE was part of this. It's a derailment exercise.
Yeah.
Which is why I asked if VRE was, anyway, sorry to.
It's okay. I just,
Okay, great, thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Just a question that I have on your report, Rich. So in terms of the bicycles, which have been an incredible success and wonderful, is there a point at which, as our ridership returns, that we start bumping up into capacity issues or space issues in terms of and assuming that we continue to see more and more bicycles as well? Like at a certain point, are the cars full? And when is that point?
Well,
And
first of all,
what is our plan for that?
thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, we welcome that.
Yeah, good problem to have.
Absolutely.
Right.
We welcome that. And I think actually, with the way that the policy is set up now, I think, frankly, even with trains getting more crowded and maybe to the point where, we have standees and stuff like that. Having gone to this policy, if you will, I think it not only has probably, educated riders a little better because they know how to get bikes on and off the trains where they can be located and stuff like that. And it also, as we bring ridership back, they also get used to seeing bikes on the train, so they get used to navigating around them. All of that to say, yes, at some point, we may get back to a point where, maybe instead of having bicycles that we can put on every car of every train, we may have to just select, very crowded trains. Bicycles can only go on a car, but I just don't see us ever going back to as restricted as the policies we had before. We're just managing that as we go along.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on the CEO report? Okay, next item is rider and public comment. VRE accepts public comments both in person and electronically via the VRE website. Members of the public wishing to make public comments have 3 minutes and should state their full name and the jurisdiction they live in. And written comments submitted before 8 a.m. this morning will be forwarded to the members of the board, read into the minutes, and attached to the official minutes. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to address the board? Madam Clerk, do we have any electronically submitted comments?
Chair Waukesha, we do not.
Okay, we'll move on to action items. The first action item is action item 9A. Rich, can you introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 9A, we're seeking the Operations Board recommendation to the commissions to authorize the CEO to execute an amendment to the contract for maintenance services for commuter rail with Keolis Rail Services, Virginia, for the amount stated in the resolution, for a total contract value not to exceed $70,751,779. This amendment would then, it effectively, as with the next item, what it does is it basically funds the contract to Keolis for fiscal year 2024. you've already approved this and the commissions have already approved the budget piece of this. So this is just simply amending their contract. We'll state that, there are no planned service changes, increases, decreases, effectively, comparative year over year. There is a contract required, escalation. And so that's primarily the difference in, the cost between fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions on the item?
Mr. Chair, Rich, what is the escalator that was used in the contract?
So the escalator that's in the contract, it's based off of a consumer price index piece, and it runs, I believe, October to October. We try to, and so one of the reasons why we do that, of course, is that helps inform us when we bring you the budget in December. So we actually have a better number to plug in there, but that's what it's based off of.
Okay.
CPI.
Okay, is there a motion to approve action item 9A?
So move, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Item 9B, Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, we're seeking a recommendation by the operations board to the commissions to similarly to 9A, for the CEO to execute an amendment to the contract for operating services for commuter rail. In the amount stated in the resolution, plus or no, there is no contingency, I'm sorry. And similar, this is for fiscal year 24. And again, this was in the budget, the previously approved budget. Once again, no material changes in service levels, et cetera. Again, primarily the increase is due to the escalation factor of CPI. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions on the item? Is there a motion to approve action item 9B?
Move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. 9C, Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 9C, we're seeking authorization to execute a contract amendment for construction management services for the Quantico Station Improvement Project. Is specifically seeking authorization to amend the contract in the amount stated in the resolution, plus a contingency to, again, from a contract value standpoint or contract authorization, to a total amount not to exceed the $3,086,834. Just to kind of go back a little bit history. So we had executed the construction management agreement back in 2020, fall of 2020. We gave them NTP in February of 2021. And when we executed the agreement initially, and I'll back up too, this is a request for proposals, right? So we received proposals. And when we executed the initial authorization or sought the initial authorization for the contract approval, I think, basically that was, we gave them authorization, what was somewhat best case, if you will. There's a lot to this project. There's not just the station improvement, but we are, with this project, we are constructing a retaining wall, and there's also CSX is in this area also doing actually the tie-in and some other work to tie in the third track in here. So again, we sought and received authorization for what was kind of the best case. As we got into this project, even initially, We gave the contractor NTP in February of 2021. And as the engineer of record and the construction contractor, we're going through the permitting process. Of course, the permitting process took a little bit longer than we originally anticipated. We did have the construction management team actually oversee some utility relocation, so they were busy, they were doing some things. But again, in the best case scenario, when you have these multiple different entities relatively in the same area and stuff, you're scheduling things simply to operate in parallel. And so even from the beginning, whereby the construction activity and the, say, utility relocation could have been happening at the same time, and there's some synergies there. So we lost some time on the front end of this. We also, because of the outcome of the permitting process, had to make some design changes and stuff, and that drove some what I refer to as above normal requests for clarification or requests for changes, requests for information from the contractor that our construction management team got involved in. And so, and again, not to suggest that these things don't happen, but we went into this, I think, more with the best case. And now I'm coming back saying, okay, we've been through things here. We've been through some elements of it. And what I'm trying to do is receive authorization. We've projected out to what the, what we think will be the end time frame of this project. And so it adds some months. It adds obviously some, there's personnel involved in here. So what I'm seeking here was almost based on what we know today, now is what the worst case is, right? So obviously so for example, we're anticipating now that the construction management services could be, wrapped up about this time next year, maybe in about 12 months or so. And of course, if that happens sooner, and part of that actually ties to some work that the CSX is doing out there, as I mentioned, to tie all the tracks and stuff in, which has been, I'll say delayed, but almost for good reasons. They were also the folks up there doing some maintenance away work in other areas of the territory to maintain the territory. So I didn't mean to make that sound too long, but this is one of those things where, particularly with construction management services, I mean, we don't generally want to go out and authorize the entire budget right up front. We'd like to get into the project a little bit and kind of right-size the project. So I will end with, I'm seeking contract authorization here to amend their contract. This is not a budget issue or anything. The budget's there. I'm just seeking contract authorization here. That's my summary.
Okay.
Not so concise, Mr. Chair.
Questions?
I think I do.
Okay, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I know, though a long explanation, I appreciate the explanation because this has been a project that's been on your report for a little bit. And I could physically see when I've gone to just kind of see that this is moving forward. But with that, this should not delay the project anymore, should it? Rich, you're just making sure that the paperwork is insane.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, again, we've accounted for what we know today.
Mhm.
And even we lean now more towards the worst case
Yes.
instead of the best case. Like I said, our from the station rehabilitation part and station expansion part, we expect that to mostly be completed by the fall, or by the end of the calendar year.
Yeah.
And of course, CSX there's some work that we need CSX to do so our contractor can come back.
Yes.
It's just kind of lining everything up.
Yes, yes.
We've taken more of a worst case look until now. And so, but again, all of us are very, very inspired, I will say, to get this project wrapped up as soon as possible, because not just because of the enhanced station facility capabilities, but it adds this, it connects this third track. That's capacity for us in an area of the service where we need the capacity. So anyway, I just.
No, I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving permission to speak, because it just in making sure that, again, the town of Quantico is aware of the, what's going on. And I just want to make sure when I'm talking to them, and it has become quite frequent all of a sudden, but it's because of that project and the accessibility in and off of the base. I want to make sure that all know that this doesn't delay the project and won't inconvenience them as well, because that's key.
Mr. McLaughlin and then Ms. Franklin.
I'll be quick. I just want to know, this Quantico project is intertwined with the Arkandale Powell's Creek project, about a 9-mile project. And completion of it at that time is going to be very important to get that extra 9 miles of third track. I'm not just saying that because the state is going to own that third track in this lane, but it's roughly the same time when this project is wrapping up. We'll be undergoing construction on another project, the Alexandria Fort Track project. So it'll be very important for CSX when they're dispatching to be able to have this project complete. And this extra 9 miles will help with a lot of
With
fluidity,
the flow, yeah.
while the other project's gonna go into the night. And Alexandria, that's really gonna start over the next 8 years or so, for better or for worse. A lot of construction projects up and down the Fredericksburg corridor. So the timing of this is good. So I appreciate everyone's support of this moving forward. Because again, this is they're all intertwined. You both connected the lifelong that'll.
That makes sense.
Ryan, when we were children, that was on, I think, Saturday mornings or something like that. So this is going to be very important when you continue the Quantico project move forward. And the rest of the line. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
Sure, yeah, I'm supportive of this. I do want to make sure, because we're asking for an additional, I guess, 1 million. So do we have any additional unforeseen that we think about down the road in which we'll have to continue to increase the contract?
Chair, for this contract, no.
Okay, so this is
There could be-
probably, yeah, so this is probably the last time we'll have to increase the contract. Just wanted to make sure of that.
I will say, we're doing the same thing on the construction side, frankly, right now, and we'll see where that leads, but so we've analyzed this, I'm coming to you. This likely takes care of this one, more likely than not. And then we're doing the same thing on the construction side.
Okay.
Motion to move.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 9D, Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 9D, seeking is, once again, a recommendation from the Operations Board to the commissions to authorize the CEO to execute a letter of agreement to extend the current term of the operating access agreement with Norfolk Southern Railway Company for 1 year to expire on June 30th, 2024. Just our current operating access agreement with Norfolk Southern expires on June 30th this year. Now, of course, that's not a surprise to us. We have been in discussion with Norfolk Southern for months on what a new operating access agreement would look like. I will say that we have been in our discussions, we have expressed our desire to Norfolk Southern about something a little bit more longer term. In other words, instead of coming back every 5 years to renew an agreement, do something a little bit longer term. And the other part is, obviously, we're talking about different service levels and stuff, and, sort of a methodology on how to, accommodate those different service levels. All that to say is those discussions have been ongoing, but I don't think it's any surprise. Norfolk Southern has had they've been really focused on their railroad, their operations and stuff like that over the course of the last couple of months. And frankly, I just felt like instead of just trying to push through what could have been just the same old agreement, if you will, that we go ahead and extend the agreement for a year. That gives us some time to further those discussions and, hopefully end up in a position that, that actually coincides with whatever, more coincides with, what our future plans and stuff are. This doesn't mean that I may not be back to you in 6 months, but this just gives us a little bit of headroom to further those discussions. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions? All right, is there a motion?
For approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. 9E, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we're seeking is authorization from the board to offer fare-free travel on Fridays, fare-free Fridays, to all riders during the month of, starting in the month of June through September. Actually, that's September 1st, which is the last Friday. And simply put, we've had some different discussions, particularly throughout the beginning of this year. We had some similar discussions about reduced fares previously, and the board took action on that to continue a promotional reduced fares in zone 1 to 3. So one of the things that our team and sort of the genesis of this is doing something similar to what we did last September in terms of fare-free, but not that extensive. And Fare-Free Fridays gives us an opportunity here throughout the summer to to not only promote VRE service, but as everybody knows, that's our lowest ridership day, and has historically been our lowest ridership day. One of the other things we're looking at is this gives us a little bit of, or gives us a sort of a targeted day of the week, if you will, to target some of our other efforts towards large groups. One of those things that we learned in Fare-Free September is we had several large groups, and I'm talking 100, 120, 150 people boarding our trains. And this gives us more of a sort of a targeted focus on getting to those folks. But it also gives us an opportunity to continue to take some data as it relates to passenger behavior, as it relates to fares. And so it does several different things to us, or for us. And again, on the ridership side, historically throughout the summer, ridership is low. And it's even more cyclical, but like I said before, specifically on Fridays, our ridership is low. So this is purely promotional. It's a recommendation we're making to the operations board, and glad to take any questions there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Open it up. Crystal.
With regard to the organizations to which you might be reaching out to coordinate with, I thought it was so interesting about groups, and I, especially since this is, summer travel season, I'm thinking about the massive numbers of American preteens that descend on the Pentagon City Hall. How much I'd love if they wanted to come by VRE instead of their massive tour coaches. Is there any effort to talk to the various jurisdictions, like visitor services, tourism and travel? Is that on the radar already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll give you another example is we've had some folks reach out to us, like different museums and stuff in DC, and see if we could put something together.
Mhm.
And so essentially in an arrangement like that, they would promote it for us. It's like, come up on, come into our museum. Hey, guess what? VRE is fare free, and sort of promote that. I mean, there is an element of congestion mitigation here, because albeit VRE's ridership is low on Fridays, I-95 is packed on Fridays, right?
Yeah.
So more so headed to the beach direction, but nonetheless, I think a lot of this gives us an opportunity to take some, closer observations, data, And again, it's removing that fare impediment from people, so they're just simply focused on what station, what time, what train. And it does have a lot of benefit, obviously, in terms of data collecting, so.
And I'll just say on that point, one of the things that I think we're gonna have to seriously consider as we move forward to chart our path to the future is perhaps a more flexible demand-based pricing model. Recognizes that there's a lot more demand for VRE on some days of the week than others. And the data that we've gotten so far from our free fare and reduced fare experiments is that actually lower prices mean more riders. So there is a group of people out there who are very open to riding VRE if the price is a little bit lower. And I think what we haven't tried yet is this kind of day specific free or reduced fare experiment. And I think the data will be really important for us moving forward to determine whether that's something we should consider. I don't envision a world where there will be permanent free fare Fridays, right? But we might have a lower fare on Fridays if that means we can bring in more riders and actually generate more revenue, as we learned during the recent reduced fare. So I think this can give us some data to help the operations board make those difficult decisions moving forward. Ms. Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with you because I think we need to be a little more creative in this world of coming out of COVID and how we do things, and everything is not as it was status quo before COVID. And so I think this does give us an opportunity because data tells us a lot about the way ahead. And if we keep operating the way ahead, the way we've operated before, we won't know the direction as an operations board. This helps our community. So I appreciate the foresight.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Aside from tourism opportunities, what other groups are you planning to port or have you ported?
Well, the other group, we still have a population of folks that actually commute on Friday. And one of the things, and I just mentioned it in the background, is that our teams, and this has been discussed, I think, on this side of the table before about, again, how do you ride VRE? How do you, what's the magic wand, if you will? And there's some intimidation there. So this gives us an opportunity. We're going to roll out some how-to videos. Our marketing folks and our customer service folks are going to, and so we're going to target and just see kind of how impactful those may be as well. Back to the commuters as well.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead. No.
can I assume that those folks though need to commute Monday through Thursday also? They're not just Friday commuters that are like intimidated by the fare system, right?
But those folks could arguably be, they need to commute, you're right, but they're not taking VRE. They're in their vehicle or whatever. The other thing I should mention is that there's many companion initiatives going on here. We will be going back out here week after next with another blast for about 6 weeks of radio campaigns and stuff like that, actually focusing on that. The drive time hour and letting people know, hey, if you want to try VRE, it's free on Fridays, come try VRE.
So, okay, I think I'm starting to understand you. So on Friday, like folks that are not using VRE at all,
Right.
we're luring them in on Friday to say, hey, come ride free. You don't have to mess with a ticket, but while you're riding the train, we're going to show you a video of how you will have to eventually learn.
Trying
Right.
to tie all of that together. Yes.
Okay, so the videos will be shown while they're riding the train.
Well, they'll actually be made available to them. They can observe them.
Yeah, I guess you don't have it's not like the airplanes where you have to watch. Okay.
So
Yeah,
again,
the timeshare thing, where you go to the beach and you're like, we'll give you free lunch because that's it.
That's right. That's right.
Ms. Bowman?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I was kind of sitting on the fence on this one coming into the meeting, and then we had a little bit more discussion at the executive session. you know, because whenever you're investing additional money, especially when it's pandemic money, you want to know you're getting a good return on your investment, and that's my concern. But I believe Rich and others have convinced me that we're going to be able to gather additional data here that we can use, and for that reason, I'm going to support it. My thing is, even for me at my age, you know, I don't want to have to navigate, you know, getting on the train, you know, it doesn't matter what city you're in. You know, our young people know how to do all this, the Katie Crystals of the world. But, you know, so it is, Rich is absolutely right. It is an intimidating thing. You're trying to get to the train. You don't even know where the station is. Where do I park? How do I do this? Where's the platform? And so for me, I really want to target all of the kind of elderly population that are looking for things to do that maybe they don't have in our region, Fredericksburg, Stafford, King George, Caroline, and the city, to get them up to Northern Virginia. You know, they know that the traffic is bad. Okay, great, then take the train. So there's a huge elderly population in that our region, as there is in all of our regions. And I feel that they are a prime target area. And we can make it easier for them. I hope we can gather some data, as well as the people that Rich is talking about, people that don't typically ride on Fridays, that are, you know, government employees or just need to get to Northern Virginia. So I'm willing to go ahead and invest this money and see what we can gain from it. But I would like to see from the marketing standpoint, and maybe we can talk about it the retreat, kind of a marketing plan from your marketing department and how they're looking to go about everything. And I'm sure they've already got that in place, knowing you and your team.
No, that reminds me, when Katie made her announcement that she wasn't running for re-election, I read an article. She said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation in Arlington. That she was aging out of the Arlington County.
So true story.
Arlington is a very different place.
The median age for Arlington, I think, is something like 36.
Yeah, wow.
The majority of our population is under 35.
Yeah, wow.
Elderly.
Yeah. To get your walker on the way out of here. Franklin?
Well, also Katie is gonna be in the how-to video, so she's.
Yeah.
Just a couple things. I do wanna, highlight the point that, Mr. Walkinshaw made about the past data with regards to when we did Fear Free. I think we did, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we did see an increase in ridership. And so, you know, for those that may be on the fence about supporting, I would expect to see that same type of data for the Fridays. And again, we're targeting people not already currently taking VRE. Those who are in the cars on 95 going towards DC, we want to try and get them onto the VRE. And so just wanted to flag that. I think that's a real opportunity for us there.
Scary.
I'll be quick. I will say I was a little hesitant about this. I know we did something last fall that I think was effective, but maybe more so in the data we collected. So that's really the selling point for me. I think the more that we understand why people ride, what they're willing to pay, and when they travel, the better we can do. So I'm on board for this. I would like to see going forward if and how this will recur. I would be interested now, since it's the second time that we're doing it, if we could make it.
Again, Mr. Walker, just one more thing. I will say with regards to marketing, part of that is going to be us telling our constituents as well, and really putting it out there and encouraging our constituents to also take the VRE and learn more about the VRE. So I think we kind of all have to be part of that marketing effort.
Right.
It's true.
Ms. Bailey, and then maybe we'll make that the last point.
Okay. Is that a hit, Mr.?
No, I'm just
No, I want to go back to just highlight and expand what my colleague, Ms. Bumpkin, was saying about our seniors. But this might be an opportunity, a great opportunity for us to look at the demographics of who's, you know, like the ADA residents, things like that, you know, and making sure that we are capturing a little more robust data. I like, that's why I wanted to support it. But kudos to my colleague, Ms. Bumpkin. She always never forgets the senior citizens. That's important because I do have a vast amount of my districts I like that. With that, I move this forward, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Hayes opposed?
Okay, was that Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. That takes us to our information items. Rich, anything on the spending authority report?
Just a couple items there. If you have any questions about what's on the spending authority report, glad to answer those.
Okay. System plan 2050.
Okay. Let me just, Mr. Chair, let me just tee this up. Here's the intent here. You were sent this presentation. Hopefully you guys all got this in an email yesterday. Our intent here is to briefly go over this presentation. Our objective here is to go over this presentation briefly. Really what this helps is the detail within this presentation. It's really designed to help with transitioning into the retreat next month. So if you hadn't had a chance to look at it, and Nick Ruiz is going to go through this again very briefly, hit the highlights, and of course, Nick, Christine, and their teams and stuff will be available from now till the retreat or whatever, if there's any specific questions that you have. So just wanted to set it up that way. If Nick appears to be flying through it, why is that? Okay, so.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Rich. Thank you. And
A clicker.
I do right here. All right. So I think it's helpful to prepare everyone for the discussion next month to look back at System Plan 2040. That plan was adopted in 2014. It took a phased approach to increasing levels of service up to the ultimate condition in 2040 with 52 daily round trips on the system. This plan was created at a time when VRE's biggest issue was lack of capacity. So that was kind of the main constraint and the main subject area of the plan. There was also a companion financial plan that was done about 2 years later. And this was where VRE identified the cost to implement the full system plan, 52 daily trains. At the time, the board chose to adopt what we call the natural growth profile of service expansion until additional capital and operating funding could be secured. Now, remember, this was 2016, and a lot changed between 2016 and 2020 and today. One of the most important things being in 2018, the Commonwealth gave VRE $15 million annually in CROC funding, which could be used for either capital or operating expenses for the system. Then hot on the heels of the CROC funding, Transforming Maryland, Virginia came along. And then, of course, hot on the heels of Transforming Maryland, Virginia, a major global pandemic. So a lot has changed since System Plan 2040. It was a visionary document. And from an implementation standpoint, there was a lot left to future out years. And so what System Plan 2050 seeks to do is pick up where System Plan 2040 left off with some new assumptions based on the conditions. So a little detail for those who were not on the board during the CROC days. The Commonwealth gave us $15 million. For the next 10 years, roughly $7.5 million of that has been committed to, on a pay-go basis, to projects in the Fredericksburg Line corridor for Transforming Maryland, Virginia, with another $7.5 million being committed to debt service for our contribution to purchase of the rail corridor. Now, Mike, if I get any of this wrong, please correct me. So after 2033, VRE is going to regain the $7.5 million in pay-go. However, the additional $7.5 million will still be tied up in debt service payment requirements through 2050. So we thought 2050 was a good time horizon because you've got kind of a near term, you've got a longer term window from a funding perspective. So Transforming Maryland, Virginia, obviously, what this gets us, the major projects in the first two phases of Transforming Maryland, Virginia include the new 2-track Long Bridge for passenger and freight separation, a 4-track railroad down to Alexandria, and a 3-track railroad from Alexandria to Lorton, in addition to a major project up in the Franconia area in the passenger freight bypass. What it gets us from a service perspective is 63% more weekday trains than we currently operate. The option to add weekend service, as well as freight separation in some of the key bottleneck areas in the corridor. Yes.
You said I could jump in.
Yes. Sorry.
Go back to the last slide, but phases 3 and 4 are defined. The service that results in that is undefined. So phases 3 and 4 actually would complete a 3rd track all the way to Crossroads Yard, Spotsylvania, which is very important because that will give us a dedicated passenger track all the way in the VRE territory. So just a slight, phases 1 and 2 were mostly funded. They're defined. Phases 3 and 4, the construction infrastructure is defined, but what we get from that, from CSX in return for service, still remains to be determined to an extent.
Thank you. That's a good distinction. So just a little more detail on the specific levels of service. That's by phase 2. So this is 2030 time horizon. TRV permits VRE to run an additional 10 weekday round trips on the weekdays, 6 weekend round trips system wide, for a nominal 20-minute peak period headway in the AM and PM peaks. It does accommodate some limited late night and midday travel markets with some additional trains, but I will say limited, basically where they could be accommodated. And so essentially the TRV service plan really was born out of elements primarily in the phase 2 of the system plan 2040 time horizon, the 2030 time horizon of the previous system plan. So the TRV service really is kind of a reflection of the prior planning document. Just a little look back at VRE ridership over the past couple of years leading up to the pandemic. Relatively flat trend, with the exception of some notable events and some seasonality. And then, of course, after April, a fairly consistent increase in service as we recover. And then specifically on days of the week, as we just discussed with the Friday fare free, Fridays continue to be our softest days, with Wednesday and Thursday being our more ridden days. And this is just from a representative average weekday ridership from the month of October last year. And then what's going on the parallel transportation corridors and parallel transit agencies. This is VRE quarterly, 4th quarter ridership in comparison to the other regional systems. Obviously, Metro Rail, the big player in the region, but you can see kind of the annual trends there. I think it's important to note travel time index that might be somewhat of a complicated or mysterious metric, but essentially it's the ratio of the free flow travel time to congested. So if normally it takes me an hour and the travel time ratio is 1.3, it's going to take me an hour and 20 minutes. And you can see basically in the Northern Virginia and DC area roadways and highways, our 2022 travel time index is essentially where it was pre-pandemic. And then I think this one is pretty striking. This shows just the Fredericksburg region and looking at the travel time index there. And you can see the big distinction is on weekdays, you're right around 1.0. So essentially in quote unquote congested conditions, the travel time is very similar to free flow conditions on the weekday AM. Contrast that with the weekend, and you're seeing almost a 50% increase in travel time in congested conditions on Saturdays and on Sundays. So we're definitely going to be looking at that, and we're going to be talking about that next month in some of our service scenarios. Just a reminder, this was something we presented last fall. The 2050 vision, VRE will grow to serve the region as a transportation service of choice, creating meaningful connections and economic opportunities in a safe, sustainable, and equitable manner. And that came with 4 primary system plan goals: safety, reliability, market growth, financial stability, regional system integration and equitable service, and sustainability and resiliency. And then an ultimate slide here, just taking a look at how we've started from a fairly large list of potential service scenarios that we'll be presenting to you all next month. Obviously, it wasn't productive to present to you 22 service scenarios. So we had an internal team and a consultant team assist us in narrowing those down. And I think we've got 4 2030 time horizon alternatives that are really good, that we think will get a lot of good discussion. We'll talk about the merits of each of those alternatives at the June board workshop, as well as some other things, current ridership trends, baseline ridership projections for the TRV service, some of those service alternatives, as well as the cost performance data for those alternatives and recommended next steps. So that's all I've got. Hope that was about a little less than 10 minutes. So, yeah. Questions?
Okay, any questions?
Just two. One, to follow up on, you mentioned limitations around midday service. Can you say more about what those limitations are?
So I think that maybe is a question more for Michael.
That has to do with the agreements with CSX. When we were negotiating transforming Virginia with CSX, they didn't show us their model that shows when their trains get out, but basically they try to clear during rush hour their freight trains, and they bring them back out during the middle of the day, and then they try to clear it again during the evening peak. I'm not saying it's always perfect. Some of the operations folks can might say there are some trains during rush hour, but they definitely do make an effort, without a doubt, to clear during the VRE peaks. But then they have to serve the customers during the midday. Adding more capacity and getting us that dedicated tracks would really help with that, to the point where the greatest part of transforming Rail Virginia would be one day not asking their permission, not having to.
That's what's underlying my question about midday service. I mean, wouldn't it ultimately, that constraint would start to lift entirely, wouldn't it?
That's why phases 3 and 4 are so important to get the dedicated third track. Now, sometimes you might need to recycle a train back on their tracks, but that's something we might be able to work with them on. So we're gonna try aggressively to fill a small gap we have for phase 2 service, phase 2 construction, and then we'll try to aggressively go after money for phase 3 and phase 4 from federal funds.
Okay.
Because the state is well overmatched, and local match now is 80% local, 20% federal. Even if we get more, so we can keep tapping those state funds that you helped us work with. Thank you. A few years back we have a lot of local state money that we can tap, that IIJA money. So phases 3 and 4, finish those, we could get midday service.
What would be like, widest possible margin is fine, but roughly, what would the timeline be if we were able to be successful as the fund develops? I mean, are we talking?
I've been burnt by timelines.
Let me tell you. Respond this way. What I'm trying to get a sense of is, would it be smart for the operations board to be cognizant of that when they are planning a system plan that goes through 2050? Or is that unrealistic? I guess that's why I'm asking.
Oh, I think by 2050, if funds are available, they'll be realistic, to the point where we have phases 1 and 2 will start that third track to Spotsylvania. And if some way we receive funds while the contractors are out there to continue it, and we have environmental clearance, by all means, we'll add an extra mile here, an extra mile there. That'll get us even further there. We had planned to do that, but inflation hit, some other things hit. We had planned to expedite some phase 3 projects, but that has to wait a little bit. But you know, I'm hoping I'm alive to see that.
Yes.
Too many references to AIDS maybe today. But happy to discuss that, but something that we're happy to work with you on to try to expedite projects, but again, funding is key.
So in a similar vein, like you may have thoughts on this, which you may as well, Mark run through service. There are a lot of barriers to that, right? The expansion of Long Bridge is necessary but not sufficient. Could you give us a sense about what those conversations look like, and you know, if that vision were to come to pass, what kind of time horizon would the board be looking at, thinking about? Either of you, I mean, you both have been.
From my perspective, it would not, the Long Bridge has to be in place,
Right.
frankly. And not just from the capacity in that territory, but having the Long Bridge in place also says the 4th track, you know, AF to RO is completed, LaFont, 4th track, LaFont. So
those are all TRV 1 and 2, right? That's not the.
those are all TRV 1 and 2. So, and that's the same corridor, right, that we're looking at, is being able to get MARC trains through Washington Union Station and into Alexandria I know we're working on an extension out to Tyson's for you right now. It's not.
We have to uncover the Berry Railroad first. We're
Exactly.
gonna get our best archaeologists on.
But it's that time frame that, and again, I don't wanna, speak for the board, or I don't wanna speak for the commissions or even VRA, but that just from a practical standpoint, feasibility standpoint, that's the time frame when something like that could happen.
Okay, that's really helpful. I guess what I would say, I mean, look, free advice for what you pay for. To the extent I'm thinking about this group meeting again next month and starting to consider those long run service alternatives. To me, anyway, I think there is some value in having a 2050 plan that is ambitious and not just a prediction of what will happen, but an aspirational statement about what could. And with Mark run through with more midday serving a broader population. And to me, the midday that's why I started thinking about VRE's commitment to equity in this region, right? I mean, those are people who are not working 9 to 5, who are, in the deeper suburbs or exurbs, but trying to get to service jobs. So that's, to me, there's a lot of potential there. I think it's worth having, you obviously want to plan this realistic, but I think about how much we referred to 2040 as a document when we were lobbying General Assembly members, and to be able to sort of point to this and say, if you can make this happen, we have a strategy to turn it into real service. And so there are some values to having an ambitious system plan. And I think if feasibility is within the grasp of 2050 for run through service, more midday service, I hope the VRE Operations Board will model that out and consider including it in the system by 2050.
Great, wonderful comments. Part of our goal here was exactly what Katie did, is get our minds moving in preparation for the retreat in June. So take more time to digest this and think about as we head toward that retreat, and share any additional questions or comments you have. One thing I'll note, I should have noted during my initial comments, the retreat is June 16th. So please block your calendars for that. And there was also a survey that went out asking for some of your feedback in terms of the agenda for that. I'm informed that not 100% of the operations board has responded to that. So if you haven't, please take a couple minutes. It takes about 5 minutes, max 10 minutes, but it will help us as we continue to plan for the retreat in June. Anything else on this information item? Okay, next item is closed session, and I'll ask the vice chair to make a motion.
Sure. Pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711.A19 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the VRE Operations Board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing one matter involving plans to protect public safety as it relates to specific cybersecurity threats or vulnerabilities and actions taken to respond to such matters and related threats to public safety where discussion in an open meeting would jeopardize the safety of any person or the security of any facility, building, structure, information technology system, or software program.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Ms. Bagley? Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Yes?
Ms. Crystal?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Gary?
Aye.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Smith? And Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye. Okay, you?
Let us know when we're not.
Yes, just a couple of minutes. Yes, we can.
Just so you know, there'll be a couple of additional staff. Yes, and then us.
I'm conducting any business. And then if you have a minute after our meeting. Yeah.
Okay, I do.
Okay, Madam Vice Chair.
Sure, the VRE Operations Board certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge and with no individual member dissenting at the just concluded closed session. One, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act were discussed. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Bagley? Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bomke?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Ms. Gary?
Aye.
Ms. Hayes? Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? And Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion.
Okay, great. On to Operation Board Members time.
I'll pass, thank you. Wish the best to Katie Crystal.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your service. I also want to acknowledge that today was Bike to Work Day. I spent time at the Woodbridge VRE this morning. I know that I think we had Omni Ride at the Ripon VRE. And I think I barely missed the VRE staff at the Woodbridge location, but we got good participation. So thank you for those who showed up. We have these cool T-shirts that we've been passing out along with a swag bag. So thank you to those who participated in Bike to Work.
I just want to thank Rich and his crew for coming out for our groundbreaking ceremony at Potomac Shores. It was a monumental event and progress going forward. So we appreciate your support. And to Katie Crystal, you got me into this stuff and I'm so grateful. I wish you the best. It's been exceptional to work with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Not enough ample time to thank you
No.
for all that you've done. We heard a forum at the end of March in Arlington. I had the opportunity. So thank you, Katie, for everything you've done with us, transform around Virginia. Again, no words are going to say adequately put the amount of emphasis necessary for Katie's impact on everything that's happened at VRE and beyond the last few years. Thank you.
Is that me? Yeah, I echo Mike's words. Katie, I've learned a lot from you. I really do appreciate your leadership. And as the chair said, you did lead us through some tough waters. I remember about 4 years ago right now, we had a lot of angry constituents over PTC and the heat. And anyway, I won't go on, but you have absolutely shown true leadership.
I'm sorry we didn't get to really work together very much so, but it sounds like you are as effective as all of us would want to be. And that clearly shows with the accolades listed and the gratitude from everyone. So you will be missed even by me who doesn't know you as well as everyone else. I appreciate you and your presence. Also, congratulations to all of our high school and college graduates. We have that going on, so congrats to everyone there. And you know what, even the middle school and elementary schools, right? They have their own little graduations now. So.
Thank you. I said it all earlier, but thank you, Katie, and look forward to working with you again. Only other thing I'll note is the CEO Evaluation Committee will meet right here. Maybe give it 2 minutes for folks to use the restroom or grab a drink. They'll try to get started as quickly as we can. Thank you, everyone, and we're adjourned.
Okay, that was good.
Ready?
Okay. Well, let me get. Sir? Yes. Okay, so let me get back to you on that, and after the 25th, okay? Okay. All right.
My daughter does.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, okay, I gotta find out. All right, bye-bye. I'm here.
Okay, all right. Thank you both. And there are several other members of this committee who are not here today. I think Mr. Zing and Mr. Spork and maybe one other. And I'm not a member.
Here's on it, yeah, yes. Sir.
Right, right. But I wanted to just kind of get us kicked off and just to set the stage. It's going to be a particularly important year, I think, for the evaluation committee because one of my priorities is that we do something we've been talking about doing for the last 4 years, which is do a 360 evaluation CEO. So we need to accomplish that. And Rich and I have been talking about that already over the course of the year. But I think it's also important that we establish a policy and timeline for the operations board moving forward to conduct regular 360 evaluations. And I don't have a view as to how often that should be, but I think that's my hope is that the committee can put together a policy and a recommendation for the operations board in terms of how often the 360 review should be conducted. Because I think we don't want to be in a situation where we decide, well, one, we don't want to go a long period of time without doing it. Nor do we want to be in a situation where we do it in reaction to something, right? If there's some kind of concern or perception of a concern and then we do it. But those are the two things in addition to the normal work of the committee that I'm hopeful we can accomplish this year. So in terms of our agenda today, first item is to select a chair of the committee, and Ms. Bailey has been doing an amazing job for the last few years and has agreed to continue to serve. So unless there's any objection or concern with that or any other interest, I would recommend that the committee select Ms. Bailey to
Ditto.
as chair. Okay.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the job is yours. Congratulations and condolences, and I'm happy to turn it over to you. And my thought was Rich could talk a little bit about where we are in the 360 evaluation process, and then we can develop a plan to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say, I am very much, I think the committee is very much in concert with what your desires are. And we've been working on that already during the year. So Rich, I know you and my buddy, where is she today? She's,
Yeah,
okay.
me.
Anyway, so we are very much, Mr. Chairman, in concert with your desire, so.
Ready? So I did put a agenda together here. And just very focused on the process for the 360 evaluation. So we have been in contact with a couple of firms, individuals firms, I'll say individual/firms. And so what we're prepared to do is as a staff is, and based on any input feedback from the committee members is to bring on an individual or firm to actually manage the 360, and they would manage that for the most part with you, probably primarily through the chair, but primarily with the committee and stuff. And it's not, these are a 360 evaluation is not a foreign concept or anything like that. So there's some pretty, fairly basic
We did ours last time, like 4 or 5
Couldn't,
years ago.
I couldn't tell you.
It's been forever.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
No, we just did one, like, I shouldn't say just, but we did one 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, I couldn't tell you who that firm was.
Yeah, it hasn't been recent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, so we're ready to bring somebody on to actually work with the committee. Or fairly close to. We need to obviously, go through a couple more steps, but, and so with the idea that we can do some of this work as we progress through the summer, and some of the work can be done via email and stuff. It's about looking at the survey, reviewing the survey, putting some, giving some input back. And then, of course, conducting the survey, which the third party individual or firm would actually conduct it, sending it out, getting the feedback and stuff. With the idea that, being able, and again, being kind of conservative on some dates, but being able to have some results ready to share with the committee in the late July, August timeframe, with partly the ultimate goal. And again, just putting a goal out there is to be able, for the committee to have already have looked at it, and then effectively at the September board meeting, have the rest of the operations board to be able to look at it. So that's the, as it relates specifically to the 360 evaluation. Couple things from the committee perspective. Of course, this is a committee for the CEO, CLO, General Counsel, Steve. And so it had, I guess, from last year's discussions, it had been discussed to do an evaluation, a similar evaluation with for the general counsel position as well. And if that's the case, these could be done, together, combined, whatever. However you want to look at it. So,
Mr. Chairman, or
yeah,
I don't know who to.
yeah, go ahead.
Do we have to do an RFP for this to select the firm?
No, this is gonna be
Okay,
It's a
well,
micro.
that's good because I was thinking, I don't think we'd ever meet that time.
No, it's a micro purchase.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, of course. Okay.
That's a tiny purchase.
I guess, Madam Chair, just in terms of the discussion, whether we should include the general counsel as well. I mean, one question I always have is, is Steve in his role interacting with a large enough group of employees to make it make sense, right? What percentage of VRE employees that would be part of your 360 review would have interactions with Steve or insight into his role? Yeah.
Very small.
Yeah, it's all the division head, department heads. But and although in the engineering side and the procurement side, it's probably everything. All of it. My main contact is with Rich.
Right.
I think it's more blind staff who wants to work on that head.
Mhm.
Not a work with that.
So. Yeah.
Well, let me just say what I'm thinking. Then the 360 would not necessarily include.
I think that's a decision point. Yeah, that's a decision point for the
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, question two, I mean, this is maybe more for the consultant, maybe, the questions asked would be different. Presumably, because the things that you're evaluating Rich on are not going to be what it's evaluating me on. So they have to structure them different. Set of questions.
I suppose, one way to proceed would, tell me if this works from a procurement standpoint, but to ask the consultant to sketch out a proposal that includes the general counsel, and then the committee can take a look at it and determine whether it makes sense. And they make the case that there's value in it and the additional cost of doing it isn't that significant. Is that possible from a procurement
Absolutely.
perspective? So that's one option and one way to proceed. I guess the other option is just say, this year we'll focus on the CEO and get that in place and then see how it goes and make a decision as to whether we want to do the general counsel in future years.
And so let me just offer this. I don't want to make a decision for the committee.
Yeah.
Arbitrarily, but the request was made directly to the CEO prior to him coming on board and the first evaluation to institute this. And so that was kind of where the focus was. I'm just painting that picture just to read it.
It's accurate, yeah.
And so that's why just in talking with the committee, we need to revisit that and make that focus.
I think that's a really good point. In terms of the broader operations board as well, I think the conversation has been about the CEO. So one way to proceed would be work to get the firm or individual on board to conduct the CEO 360.
Mhm.
And then as the committee is developing the policy for the operations board with respect to 360 evaluations,
Yes.
you can engage the operations board and say,
Yes.
should we moving forward include the general counsel?
Yeah, and I think also, Mr. Chairman, that's fair to Steve in his position as well. Because as he came on board, everybody wanted him to come on board, but again, the interaction and how he operates was not established in that way.
It's also worth noting, this 360 review will be in addition to our normal evaluation and review process, right?
That's a question.
Okay, that's.
So I need to get with Cindy because we had,
Go back.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Cindy's no longer with VRE, so
Oh,
we are recruiting, we'll be recruiting.
okay.
I meant to try to insert that somewhere here, but.
Okay, so I need to get with the committee and with Rich to establish that, and that should happen quite soon.
Sure.
It should happen soon. Janine.
Yeah, well, timeline is,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Pretty
we
aggressive.
need to pull the committee together and we can do that really quick.
So who are we missing today? Dan?
And Alana. See here.
Alana.
Andrea, Katie.
Yeah, that's it.
Katie Crystal, yeah, and because
So, I mean,
she was, yeah,
we might want to think about trying to get one more person since we're losing Katie. Maybe we put out a call to see if there's
Okay.
anyone else that would like to join to replace Katie.
we'll do that. And I'll do that next week, if that's okay. Janine, with you, is that good? Yeah. And we can just establish a time for that.
Oh, I thought you meant you were gonna do one-on-one. You wanna meet,
Yeah, make it quick, because time is of essence.
how long do we have to advertise? What's the requirement?
3 days.
3 days.
Days.
Yeah, so you want to be careful about that too. You don't want to run other opportunities for all virtual meetings.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So okay,
It might be easier for you. I know it's gonna put more work on you.
All group, just
Right.
One-on-one.
Call the ones that are missing here today, which is Dan and Alana.
okay, okay. No problem.
so
Set a date for us to do an evaluation, because we can do that electronically. We've done that. We have a process in place already.
yeah, I guess the question is, so what is the relationship between the 360 and our normal operations board evaluations process?
Right.
And is there a way to include, to do them all together?
So
That's the question. So is there a separate 360? And the normal, when I say normal, it's what we've done the last couple of years. Do we want to do both?
Merged, if I remember right. Steve, help me out. Did we do the 360 on Doug in 18 or 19?
it wasn't 19. Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay, and if I recall correctly, we kind of merged, we did our own as well, maybe, and we merged them or?
The board has done sort of typically that survey, although I think it's became a little more formalized in the last, through working with Cindy in the past couple of years, it's become more formalized. And then, if you want to do both, then you do the normal survey, the way you've done it. And then you also have the 360, and the 360 would sort of be factored into the ultimate evaluation.
Because the 360 typically would not include the operations board members, right? I mean, the idea that
Typically it would
staff,
Employees,
gotta have
staff.
something else for us because we have different experience.
Right.
So does that give you enough time?
Yeah, I just need to hear it. I just need to.
Yeah, so I think we need to do both, right?
Okay.
We get the 360 done, hopefully by September, and then we do the normal board process, evaluation process. And then that allows us by the end of the year to have both inputs, the 360 and the board evaluation process to make any decisions we need to make.
Sounds like a plan.
That sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan.
So Rich, can we talk later?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then I think, the other pieces for that longer term policy, what process does the committee want to follow to establish that? Do we need to have on the agenda an opportunity for the full operations board to just share their perspective on that? Do you want to develop a recommendation that we then take to the operations board before there's any discussion with the full operations board?
And that's the reason why, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make sure that I talked to the committee first.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well,
Because
that,
I think we're in a good place. Janine, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're in a good place in terms of us all encompassing.
Yeah.
We were there. We just need to be able to flesh it out within the community
okay,
before we make a final decision, because I don't want to be the one to say, here's what we're going to do,
yeah.
and not get their input.
So I have a funny question, I guess. I personally don't think that we should do a 360 on Steve right now, if ever. But would Steve participate on a 360 of Rich or no?
Think not, because Steve works for us.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to tell you what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
To tell you.
You don't have to wait to find out what he thinks, if that's what you're looking
Yeah, I agree with Janine. I do. I agree with you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you also, but it's worthy of discussion.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. Mr. Chairman, you good with?
You're good.
I'm good. Yeah, great. Thank you for taking it on.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, right, reelection. What's going on? It's a part of it,
This is your bailiwick. No pun intended.
or? Oh, thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, adjourn.
Oh.